Deanna.
Thanks for having me.
Deanna is going to be one of 55 authors that is going to be at the Festival of Books and Creativity in Novi, Michigan at the end of June. So excited to have you there. This is going to be a great time.
Yeah, I'm so excited to come.
So, your bookstore is where?
Menominee, Michigan. So we're just on the border of Michigan and Wisconsin. So we're like basically one of the lowest cities in the UP.
Okay. So, a little bit of a drive for you guys.
Just a little bit.
Awesome. And you have your first book out.
Yes. And it's actually the book that I wrote with my sister. So she and I will both be there. But yeah, we wrote it together.
Tell us all about that book.
So it is, I'll show it to you. It's a little bit, I love So Dark and Twisted. And it is a dark mafia closed door romance. And it's basically about a 20-something girl, and she grew up her whole life not knowing where her best friend, what happened to him. He just up and disappeared. Um,
Oh,
right before he was supposed to go to high school. And then I have some customers coming into the bookstore, so it might get a little bit awkward here for a second. But basically, hi guys, welcome in. Yeah, so basically he disappeared and she's trying to figure out what happened to him. She went to college to become an investigative journalist, and spoiler alert, he he's in the mafia, and it takes place in Chicago. So he disappeared for his own safety and also to protect her. And it just goes through
aw.
her discovering that he's actually alive,
Ooh.
and him trying to protect her, her still being a strong female and not wanting him to control her life, and
Mhm.
the development of friendship into a relationship. So
Awesome. So what took you to go this direction? Where did this story develop from?
So my sister actually started writing it first. So it's her imagination baby.
Mhm.
She wanted to write it as a way to heal from some past trauma. So she used some people in her life,
Mhm.
created this story to create a stronger version of herself. Um,
Mhm.
Obviously, my sister's never been with someone who's in the mafia. That's just kind of twist that she added on there, but basically, um, certain situations that she went through, she wanted to react differently, but she was young at
Mhm.
the time. And so she kind of came up with this idea. And then she was like, Deanna, you're an English teacher. I need your help. Because she struggles with all of the grammar, spelling, punctuation,
Mhm.
all of that. And then there were times where she was kind of hitting a wall when it came
Mhm.
to, setting description and stuff like that. So
Mm.
we both kind of jumped in together and built this story together. Um, and I never thought that I could write a story because I'm not a creative brain. Um, I'm very analytical and structural, and I struggle to picture things in my mind. So when I read, I just hear words in my head. I don't picture a scene or anything. So
Okay.
my sister, she pictures everything and knows what everything's supposed to look like, and I don't. So it's harder for me. But it's really cool because she was able to create all those images, and then I had something to bounce off of, and then
Mhm.
create along the way, which was really, really awesome. So that's kind of how it all came to be.
So you mentioned being a teacher. What do you teach?
Well, last year was my last year teaching. I decided to
Oh.
step away from teaching, but I taught for 10 years, and I taught both middle school and high school English and Spanish. And then the last 3 years, I taught middle school English, Spanish, and history. But for a while, I was only teaching high schoolers. And then there was a time where I was teaching both middle schoolers and high schoolers. It's just,
You can tell you're in a small town.
yeah. Yeah.
When the English teacher doubles as the Spanish teacher.
Yeah, yeah, and when she's also a middle school teacher and a high school teacher at the same
Yeah.
time, it's a little bit, yeah. So It was an adventure, that's for sure.
What made you step away from teaching?
um, there were a lot of things, but so I was at three different schools and I lasted about 3 years at each school. My first year teaching, I was in Illinois where I grew up, and I decided to go to the UP because I went to Northern Michigan University, um,
Okay.
and so I just kind of missed the UP and
Mhm.
decided to move up this way. Um, and I left my first teaching position because I was teaching sixth grade through 11th grade English.
Mhm.
And so I had 7 preps, which is unheard
Wow.
of in the teaching world. Not unheard of, but it's very difficult. And the pay was really low. So then
Mm.
I switched to a bigger school, and I was teaching high school and a little bit of middle school, both English and Spanish. And I left there after COVID because
Mm.
I didn't appreciate the way they handled COVID, and there were just some other things that
Mhm.
I wasn't being treated well. So I left, and then I moved to a more local school to where I lived and taught there for 3 years, added history onto that. But I only had like 6 preps because I was teaching. Well, it was a little more than that. But anyway, um, but I was only teaching sixth, seventh, and eighth grade, not like eighth grade, 10th grade. It was, yeah. Um,
Wow.
but I was the first 2 years that I was there at this other school were fabulous. I loved it. And then some new supportive staff was hired, and there was a lot of verbal abuse being slung
Mm.
around at me, and I just wasn't being treated well. So I left. Um, and I just feel like I just needed something else.
Mhm. So you guys own a bookstore now.
Yes.
Tell us about your bookstore.
So we opened the Book Nook July. Well, technically, we had a soft opening in February of
Mhm.
2024, I think it was. And then we had our grand opening in July of 2024. So this um, July will be our second year anniversary.
Mm.
And there's no other local bookstore near us. We have to drive
Okay.
either to Marquette or
Mm.
to Green Bay
Oh,
uh,
wow.
to get
That
books. And
that's a bit of a drive. I don't know the mileage there, but just
yeah,
that's a bit of a drive
yeah,
going either way.
yeah. I mean, I love Marquette. I went to school there. I would be
Mhm.
happy to drive there anytime. But in the wintertime, when the snow comes, it's
Mm.
a little difficult. Um, so we are like, and I was a teacher at the time. So I was like, we need to have access to books for kids, for
Mhm.
adults, for everyone. And my sister and I grew up loving books, loving reading. Our mother really instilled that in us from a very young age. And so we're like, let's just do it. And we waited for about a year. We did a lot of planning,
Mhm.
budgeting, all that good stuff. And then we're like, found the perfect location, jumped on it. And it's been a learning curve, but a, but a very fun learning curve, stressful yet exciting. And so far, we're doing pretty good. So, yeah.
That is awesome. I mean, to go through it sounds like a lot to go through, and then to come out with a bookstore, and now you've added author to your resume, which I think is just fabulous.
Yeah, it's really exciting.
And, to be able to do all of that, that takes a lot of planning.
Yeah, it did. And oddly enough, my sister is the one who did a lot of the business planning
Mm.
for the bookstore. She owns her own, well, she's a esthetician right now, but she was a hairstylist at the time. And so she had been doing chair renting and kind of running her own business for a
Mhm.
long time. And so she kind of knew what it took to plan out a budget and all of that. I've been teaching, so I didn't know what
But
I was
there's a lot
doing.
of planning there,
There
though. I
is,
mean,
for sure.
there's a lot of planning that goes into those lesson plans. I
It's
mean,
Yeah. So there was, we're a great team in that because anything that my sister struggles with, I help with that, and anything that I'm like, I don't know how to do that. She usually knows what she's doing, so it works out really well.
So, any more books that you guys will either be writing together, or do you plan on doing any on your own?
Yeah, so we have the book 2 for this one started. We have it all planned
Okay.
out and ready to go. Um, and then my sister has a couple of novellas in mind, and she also has a um, fantasy novel in her brain that she
Mhm.
like really wants to do. She's not sure if I'll help her out with that one or not yet because um, that will take a lot of like creative brain that I just don't know
Oh
that I.
yeah.
It's definitely writing this book has unlocked my ability to create without
Mhm.
seeing stuff because I never had the opportunity to do it before and I didn't have the
Mhm.
confidence, and writing this really helped me get that confidence. And so I started writing my own book,
Oh,
which is going to be more of a middle grade to high school Christian fiction, literary fiction novel, kind of going on
okay.
my life. I've always wanted to write like a memoir, but I didn't want to write it like a memoir. You know what I mean? So,
I love it, and yes, I totally understand where you're coming from,
yeah,
where, my life is exciting, but
yeah,
let's go fiction and really embellish on some things.
yeah, yeah. So I'm excited about that. I have a couple chapters of that done. I have it fully fleshed out and outlined because
Oh,
I like
wow.
outlines. Outlines are my jam. So yeah,
I was gonna ask you that question. That's one of my questions that I like to ask is, are you a plotter or are you a pantser? And I've had actually surprisingly quite a few that said kind of both.
yeah, I will plan out pretty much where I want the story to go, some of the main events, and then as time goes, like my sister and I discovered with A Love So Dark and Twisted, is that the story kind of changes itself.
Mhm.
Um, without you knowing it, you develop new characters. They're
Mhm.
characters that you thought were going to be fluffy golden retrievers turn out to be not. Um, so
All
it
of a
just
sudden they're pit bulls.
yeah, exactly. So it'll be yeah, it changes throughout, but it's just nice to have that structure to start off with.
Mhm.
'Cause we didn't start off with that structure with this one. This one was, like I said, my sister's baby, and she just had it all in her head. So when
Okay.
I started helping her, I read the first half of it basically, and
Mhm.
then I was like, "Okay, so what's gonna happen next?" And she's like, and then she would tell me, and I'd be like, "Wait, wait, wait. I'm not gonna remember that." And then we ended up adding an extra perspective in there, so that way, like, we could both do, like, tandem writing, and then we would go back into
Mhm.
each other's chapters. So there was a lot more planning going into the second half of the book, and then we went back to the first half to be like, "Okay, let's fill potholes because there's a lot." Um, and then so we learned that for the next time to plan everything out, and that it's okay that it changes. You don't have to stick to that. You can
Mhm.
really scrap it or just change a couple of things, but having that structure to start with has really been helpful.
Well, awesome, and I think it's great that you're gonna do a book on your own. You'll each have the books together, but then you'll each have separate books that are all you.
Yeah. And we're such different, so we're only a year and 12, well, we're 12 months and 4 days apart.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
we
That's
are
close.
we're roughly the same height. We both have red hair. We're very similar body build, so people think we're twins all the time. They mistake us for each other all the time. But we're very different people, and so it's really fun. It's going to be really fun to have our readers see that in our writing, because a lot of our friends who've bought our book, they're like, I know exactly what chapters you wrote, Deanna, and I know exactly chapters you wrote, because it sounds like us. And it was really funny because I'm the more like sheltered, like rule follower out of the two of us, and I wrote
Okay.
the mafia guy's perspective, and that just
It's awesome.
it was just a shock. Um, so, like, having to ask some of my friends, like, "What what word would you use for it? Because I was running out of words.
Right.
I don't use like swear words that often or things like that. And
Mhm.
like, yeah, so just developing that persona, kind of taking some, people that I've had in my life, like my dad and my uncle and other people, and being like, okay, what would he say? And stuff like that. So it was
So it
really,
really grew you as a writer then.
yeah, for sure.
Just the creativity side, but also a perspective that isn't normally your own.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've never been a mob boss. So
Aw.
yeah. And but it's really funny because my dad growing up, he was always the like odd dad because he
Mhm.
has long hair. He always had one earring. He was a bass player in a rock band. He had a motorcycle. Like, and all of my other friends' parents were like straight laced, like normal guy haircut, no earring. Like my dad scared some people just by existing. Like he's like a teddy bear in real life, but he just
Mhm.
always looked not like a teddy bear. As he's gotten older, like I got married a few years ago. This June will be my second year anniversary. And at my wedding, my dad wore, the three-piece suit and he got his hair cut and whatever. He looked like a mob boss, like 100%. And I was shocked. I was like, you could definitely be a mob boss in hiding, like for sure. So it was really funny.
So you guys opened a bookstore the same year you got married?
Yeah, so I was teaching, opening a bookstore, and planning a wedding all at the same time. It was a bit chaotic. Just a little
Because you should always open a business,
Mhm.
especially a brick and mortar business,
Right?
while you're getting married.
Yeah,
Because
it's great.
there's
There's
just
already
not.
chaos, so why not have more?
That is awesome. Well, I certainly can't wait to meet you in person. It's gonna hopefully we'll have some really good weather.
Yes. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed that Michigan has really good weather. That's why we're doing it on June 29th.
It's a good date.
We'll do the end of the month and hopefully we'll get some really good weather. And we're going to have 55 authors, nearly 300 book titles.
That's
I'm
awesome.
still I'm still counting up how many because we've had some people come in and some people leave, and so it's like the numbers have gone up, they've gone down, they've got so somewhere around 300.
Cool.
Lot of book titles.
That's really cool.
Well, I can't wait to meet you in person and see you there in June.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.